What if I did like this? Welcome to the Exorcism.
You do you, man.
Welcome back to the Exorcist Bestiary. Welcome back to the Exorcist Bestiary, your premier podcast on all things spiritual deliverance. We are your same hosts that are always here. We've got Tasha. For Halloween this year, she wore the same cape that she was married in, and she looked beautiful.
The cape she was married in is a statement.
Yeah, it was a true one. It was a cape that she wore when she was married. It was gorgeous. She was an elf.
That's two people that I know that were like kings and queens at their wedding.
Wow, you have a weird circle of friends.
No.
Next, we have Jamin.
They're your friends too.
They are my friends too. Let me do the intro.
Sorry.
Jamin dressed up as C.S. Lewis for Halloween because he's a little nerd.
That was cool.
Rude, first off.
He was C.S. Lewis.
He was a friend of the podcast.
I know, friend of the podcast, C.S. Lewis. That was Jamin on Halloween. And I'm your host, Amity, and I wore 6 Halloween costumes. And the best one was Chapel Roan, but I was so cold.
What's a chapel Rome? What?
What?
What did you say?
Chapel Roan?
Like
the queen of pop?
Church with legs.
No.
Roams around.
No. Have I not shown you anything, Chapel Roan? I have failed you. Oh my goodness. I have failed you as your Gen Z correspondent. I need to connect you with Chapel Roan. She's incredible. She's the queen of pop.
You did this to us.
She's a singer. No.
Welcome to the podcast. She's a singer, but she's so much more. She's an icon. Welcome to the podcast. Chapel Roan, friend of the podcast. No,
we just discovered who she is. But
I wish she was a friend of mine. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. It's been 20 minutes since we started the intro. Today, we're talking about anger, right? Yeah, we're talking about anger. We're specifically talking about healthy anger. Does it exist? How do you achieve it? What does that even mean? Someone else talk now. I've been going for a long time.
Well, does it exist is a good question once, because I remember I had a friend of mine who was talking about anger, and they're like, so what do we do with anger? And I like, as a pastor, responded like, well, we find a healthy way to deal with it. And they kind of like, oh, what? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I mean, Jesus was angry, but he's the only person who can handle that well. The rest of us, we need to just flee from it. It's like, I don't know that I agree.
Yeah. Be like Jesus in all ways, except for that.
Well, yeah. But, like, I understand Jesus was perfect with all of his life. He didn't sin. So we know Jesus was angry sometimes, but he didn't sin, which is what Paul says to do as well. He says, be angry, but do not sin. So when you are dealing with exorcism, you're going to come across the emotion of anger. In part, as an exorcist, you're going to come across it because when you see the evil things that demons do to people, it makes you angry.
Yes,
like
it does.
you are just infuriated that the people in front of you have been cheated by these spiritual entities trying to destroy their lives, lock them in lies, and like you so badly want to break them out of it. But there's a healthy form of that anger, and then there's a one that destroys you. And I've seen people destroyed by anger themselves at the demons. So it can go sideways. I had one person assist me once. I was like, hey, I just need to work on this person. You happen to be around. I need you to come in here and help me. And they came in and they saw, like, they were just so angry that this demon had destroyed the person's life in so many ways and just started, like, yelling. I was like, you're going to get out now. I was like, hey, that wasn't overly helpful. Why don't you go take a break? Never mind. I'll deal with it.
I don't need your help anymore.
Like,
You're good.
I think I've said this before. I've at least written a blog post on it, but you don't become a demon to cast out a demon. And anger can be quite demonic. I have seen situations where it's very clear, like, this anger is so beyond itself. There's something that is adding a spiritual component into it. But all humans are angry at some point in their life. You have a little baby niece.
Yes.
Has she ever
is
been
the
angry
light of my
before?
life. She was actually so angry the other day because we were at Texas Roadhouse
There
and
goes
we
the next
wouldn't.
20-minute story here again.
We would. You asked me. You asked me.
Sit back. Go ahead.
She's a perfect angel. She's the most. She's perfect. I love her. She was really upset at Texas Roadhouse the other day because she kept trying to stick her hands into the cinnamon butter and eat it at the fistful, and we wouldn't.
I
let
would be
her.
angry too if you didn't let me do that.
I know. So even
so cute.
perfect, precious, my little 2-year-old cousin who has never done anything wrong in her whole life, she gets angry because that's a normal human thing.
It is a normal human thing. It's actually a healthy thing too.
Yeah.
Like, let's say that you see in the news that somebody has been severely oppressed and you are unaffected by it. Should you be concerned? Like,
Yeah.
like you're like, oh, well, that person just was killed by a serial killer. What else is on TV? Like, you should probably stop and be like, that should have probably fazed me. Like that should have even created some righteous indignation in me that this kind of stuff happens. Yes, I need a cap or this will eat me alive, but it is not healthy for me to not care and not have any feelings around it. So
Yeah.
So it becomes a question as to like, how do we maintain healthy anger? Because yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to talk about something else.
That's good. Go there.
Okay. I think when I think about anger, the thing that trips a lot of people up is we are very quick as a society to like compartmentalize parts of the human experience as either good or bad. And there's these like big separations where like being a human means that sometimes you have good emotions like love and peace and joy. And sometimes you have bad emotions like anger, and those things are bad and these things are good. When in reality, like God crafted the human experience. God made humanity. He designed people and their emotions. And so everything that we feel and experience as people, it's not necessarily in a category of good or bad. It has the potential to be carried out in a way that is in line with God, and it has a potential to be carried out in a way that is not. And so because anger exists, we see that Jesus was angry. I would say that anger is one of the emotions that God put into people for a designated purpose, and there must be a way to carry that out in line with God's plan for humanity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because a lot of people think that healthy Christianity is an emotionless one. Like we all just need to be Star Trek Vulcans who feel nothing but are logical about everything and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's where they get you. Is it's all like, oh, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Like anything that's like a human emotion, you can't trust it. You can't play into it. You can't like let your emotions tell you things or dictate things. And it's like, dude, your emotions came from where? God? God made them. God designed them. God put them in your brain on purpose. Like he wants us to be able to experience like the full range of the goodness of the world, and you can't do that when you are apathetic.
And God is emotional when he comes to us in the form of Jesus, and he's emotional when he's still in the form of just the Father. Like the Old Testament is full of all kinds of emotions, including anger. If you go to the Psalms, they are the most emotional worship songs there are.
Yes, they are.
Like if we're supposed to say you can't have emotions, then you need to rip the Psalms out of your book. It's the same fight I have with people today on modern worship songs. We're like, oh, it's just so emotional and it's not very theological. It's like, have you read the Psalms? I don't remember the statistics, but I'm pretty sure 40% at least are laments. Like they're just sad songs because people are hurting, which means in God's Bible, he crafted intentional music to help you deal with every emotion under the sun because he knows you're going to face it and that you need to bring it to him, including anger. And this is the problem. So I've seen two extremes when I'm doing pastoring in general, but also deliverance. One extreme is the person who's angry about everything, right? Angry all the time. Every little thing sets them off. You're sometimes a little nervous as to how far they might go with their anger if you were in the wrong situation. When you meet people like that, do you trust them?
No.
For what reasons? Like my safety, the safety of others, even if it's not physical, like the things you might say are so explosive that it can throw off not just the vibe, but like ruin people's lives because you might forget about it, but they never will. You know, like there's just like that kind of anger is toxic and destructive. And whenever I run into that and people, I'm like, I would really love to do an inner healing session with you so that we can get to the bottom of why that is so deep in you. You know, like we got to work that out. The other extreme is anger is evil and I should never have it at all. And I have maintained a good Christian life by never being angry. And that is destructive in a different way.
Maintained a good Christian life. I feel like you look at those people, they are the most stressed out, like distraught behind closed doors. Like if you don't have like an outlet for anger in a healthy way, those people are not, they're not living a peaceful life. The absence of anger does not necessarily mean that there's peace because those people are so stressed and so uncomfortable all the time.
And I think the Bible talks about a peace that is no peace. I think it's one of the prophets, but have you ever experienced peace that is no peace?
Explain that to me as like if I was 10 years old. What does that mean?
Well, let's just say like, I'll be careful as I get into politics. Give me grace here. The last 4 years maybe have been kind of a peace that is no peace. We all know under the surface that there's a lot of drama between parties, but until it's agitated again with another election, it's kind of suppressed because people don't have like the thing to focus it on. So
like a piece, but you know it has like a deadline.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But like everybody knows, like, hey, the last election we were all at each other's throats, and suddenly for 4 years, like we've all just kind of been quiet about it. And now a new election comes, like, all right, agitated again. Here we go. It's like that's because we didn't deal with this last time. It just went quiet for 4 years, and so like that's a peace that is no peace. Like we pretend it's there, or we sweep it under the rug, but we aren't actually peaceful. That's because the anger that's there, along with many other things, has not been dealt with. So that can happen sometimes. There's maybe people in your life that is peace where there is no peace because you're like, I know as long as I don't say anything that I care about in front of this person, I can maintain a good relationship. And you're like, but like, I shouldn't have to live like that. I wish I could be in a space where we could talk, but I can't. So it's peace that is no peace. That's sometimes what happens with us when we're like, I just got to put anger away because I'm supposed to be peaceful for Jesus. But that's not healthy. Do you think Martin Luther King Jr. was angry?
Yeah.
I would assume he was quite angry. But what did he do with that? He let it drive him toward loving his enemies. Like that was his whole thing the whole time was like, if I decide to hate you, then I am no better than the very things that I am trying to destroy, because all of this is built on hate. So I have chosen to love you, and I will proceed. Your hooded perpetrators can come to our doors by night and throw bricks through our windows and burn our houses down, but no matter what you do, you will never be able to make me stop loving you. Like that is what he aimed for, and that became his rhetoric to deal with the anger. Because it's not like he wasn't angry. Like his friends and family and followers were being killed just for the color of their skin. You can't not be angry about that, or you have a different problem. But he had to choose to be angry in a way that would maintain the kingdom of God, bring about love, and he was strategic in it as well. He would do things that, yes, would violate like maybe the rules of an area, but in a way that was meant to create awareness of injustice for the sake of healing what was happening. So, it was strategic. Let's go to a crowded city. We're going to make a little bit of a ruckus because we need the TV cameras to show up so that it can show the world how messed up this is, so that people will be angry with us and join the fight of love to bring about justice. Now that sounds like Jesus. When he saw people being oppressed, that made him angry. When he saw people being demeaned in the name of Yahweh, that made him angry. When he saw the rich people of the temple just profiting off of the poor, that made him angry enough to flip tables and be like, this was supposed to be a house for all the nations, and yet you've turned it into a den of robbers. You guys are thieves. Like, we're not going to be able to call out injustice if we're not angry about it. Like, my master's is in theology and social justice. I've served on 6 different organizations and Jackson coalitions. I've co-founded one. I've been chairs of others and co-chairs of others. Like, I do all these things because I see the marginalized in pain, and those are the people that Jesus seemed to spend a lot of time with and loved very much. And when I find out the injustice behind those situations, it drives me to action. It makes me angry, but not in a way where I hate my enemies, in a way where I want to be there. And so there are people in deliverance where I have had to intentionally make them angry because they've suppressed it. They sometimes, like, it feels right. They don't want to hurt the church or things like that, and their anger might be at the church. But as a pastor, there's times where I come alongside those people and I'm like, it's okay to be angry at the church for what happened to you because Jesus is angry at the church for what happened to you. Actually, there's a lot of compulsion that I feel the Holy Spirit has put on my life to draw attention to the church's flaws, which is miserable for me. And it's also miserable for the people that I'm trying to call attention to. But the point is, like, we're not allowed to sweep these kinds of things under the rug. Like, we have to have an appropriate level of godly anger while we love each other. Because that, if I'm not angry, I'm not driven to do anything about it. So does anybody have anything before I ask the next question?
I think just thinking about injustices, and when injustices happen in the church is very focused on forgiveness. And sometimes to the point of, let's not deal so much with the injustices that happen. Let's just forgive. You know, let's forgive what happened. Let's move on. Let's, instead of saying to the people that were hurt, I'm really sorry that this happened. Let's, work through it. I think we're so quick to run to that, forgiveness. And really even it's, something in us sometimes that just says, I can't get angry. I can't deal with this. I have to be forgiving. I have to be loving. I have to be kind all the time. And I can't deal with this hurt in my life that's come from the church. And so, you kind of just hold on to it and you're not really able to know how to deal with that.
And the only thing that ends up doing is causing more of a division than between you and, like, the place that you're meant to be. And I mean, I know I've shared a little bit of bits and pieces of my lovely little story on this podcast, but and both of you know very well, a lot of that hits pretty close to home because I have like a lot of unhealthy habits in regards to religion and church and stuff that have been built up over time from some traumatic and hurtful things that had happened in church and around church. And the message for so long and for so much of my life was like, they had good intentions and it's church, and church people are just trying to do their best, and it's not something that you can hold on to, and it's not something that you can be angry about, and it's not something that you should be angry about. And when that was the message for years and years and years, all that did was put me in a place where I was like, all right, I guess I don't belong in church. I guess I don't belong in any sort of religion because this is hurtful to me. And if there's no way to reconcile that, then I guess this is not a place that I belong. And it wasn't until I was in environments where, like, people who were religious authority figures were like, hey, that's actually so messed up and I'm so sorry. That's crazy. And the hurt that you feel from that is so valid, and you have a right to be angry about that. And there is a place for processing through that. I had to hear that from people to even be open to the idea of like coming back to like religion and Christianity and God in the first place. And so when you set up those expectations that like this thing you're going through is wrong, and this feeling that you have, there's no place for it because anger is always bad, and da 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 da, it just causes more division, and it leaves those people, it doesn't leave them unangry. It leaves them still angry and with no one in their corner and with no one helping them with that anger.
Yeah. It's very healthy, a form of evangelism to be angry. Let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
The church, throughout the centuries, we have a long list of injustices that we've committed, and that continues to go on.
Yeah.
And when the injustices we commit are not like acknowledged, the world watches as we just pretend like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I had one person recently who reached out and was like, yeah, I'm an agnostic atheist, but I really appreciate your posts. It's like, interesting, but like for them, like I just voiced them like, look, I'm sorry, like my people, like I love my people, they're my family, and at the same time, I'm angry at the way that we act sometimes, and so you'll probably see a lot of that come out. But like for the world, even to see us angry at our own injustices, like they're mad at us, and when we're mad at us too, it's helpful for them to be like, oh, okay, well, so they're not all just like pretending like it doesn't matter or sweeping it under the rug, and then that becomes like an evangelistic tool. So your anger at your own tribe occasionally is healing for the people out there. Like just like I think you told them.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me.
Yeah. People want to hear that we recognize we're not doing okay. And I recognize in my own life where I've screwed these things up. There was a story, I hate this story from my life, but there was a time I was much younger. I was like a leader in youth group, and I had really done my friend wrong. And I felt very convicted about it. And so I went and I apologized, and I told him how I had messed up. And then also added, I hate this, and I'm pretty sure I have apologized to him before, but like, look, man, I'm like a leader in the youth group. People look up to me, and I don't. If this gets around, it could damage and hurt people. And I'm like, like I said, I don't think I've ever
That's crazy.
confessed this to more than two people. I don't know why I chose a podcast to add it in. But like, this is young youth group Jamin doing the stories that I've heard of other pastors doing, where it's like trying to cover up your own sins so that you don't hurt people. But like, I took his anger away from him in that moment. He had the right to be angry at me for what I had done. And I pushed him into forgiveness, like Tasha was saying. It's like, it'd be best if, you just forgave me and let this go. And we can work this out. Like, I hope you guys will still be my friends after I share that. But like, I've heard those stories from others, and I realize I'm guilty of it too. And what I did was I robbed him of the chance to process his anger and to have it out with me, and I tried to turn it into something spiritual. And I deserved whatever way he wanted to spank me, and I gotta work on my words.
Run that back. Say that same thing and use a different word.
I had to give him space to be angry.
This is my last episode of the podcast.
It's not as bad as the last episode. He deserved the right to be angry and have it out with me, and I robbed him of it. I'm guilty of it, and I find it repugnant when I see that in others. And one of the things that helps me balance out my love and anger when I see it in others is, you know what, Jamin, you did that too once. So, what will help me love? What will help me be angry appropriately? And what will help me not let my anger get out of control? Because there's nothing more toxic really than anger. So like, what a fine line.
Yeah.
What a fine line.
Yeah. I think that there can be a level of protection and anger too when we look at something and we call it out and we say, hey, this is not okay. This is not okay. I am not okay with it. I'm telling people I'm not okay with it. And that gives, one, it gives other people permission to not be okay with it. Two, it shines a spotlight on it that, you know, hey, this needs to not happen again. Instead of just rushing to forgiveness and, okay, let's just sweep it all under the rug and, you know, whatever. It provides a layer of protection of, you know, this can't happen again. You know, let's look at it. Let's really look at it and see, how did this happen? How can we stop it? Because it's not okay, and we need to work through it. Forgiveness, apologies need to happen, you know, all that stuff. So I think that there can be a level of protection against it happening again and being able to express that anger and, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think maybe as we get ready to close out here, what does seem like healthy ways to cap your anger? When has your anger gone sideways? What's like a telltale sign?
Always? No.
Always. Well, okay. So a good point to Tasha, like if you have sorry.
No, that's
well,
okay.
you just said you
I'm
always.
all or nothing. I get it.
Yeah. So if you're, I'm always angry. That's my secret. If you
2 Avengers references in a row.
and the same exact reference,
Same exact reference. Last podcast, this podcast.
It's my secret.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
You were asking.
Anger.
Oh, okay. If you know that anger is especially toxic for you because in the past you have just been like out of control with it, then you probably need to err on the side of non-anger. What is the word? Peace? I don't know what word I'm looking for. Like if it's dangerous for you. Like I had a friend tell me once that I was a shame addict, and they were absolutely right. Like if I have a little bit of shame, I gotta have some more shame. Just give me the whole bottle, you know. And so I had to learn like shame is supposed to be healthy. It tells you that you did something that was inappropriate and you shouldn't do it again. But if you're like me, it's like, oh, I really messed that up. I hate myself, you know, and then you're just like, you're drunk in shame. So if you've been drunk in anger before and you know it's toxic for you, then a little bit of anger goes a long way. So you got to figure out how much can I toe that line because it's taken over me in the past and it could do it again. So one thing to pay attention to, your dynamic might be different than other people's. Would you like to flesh that out more?
Jamin is pointing that question at me because I'm angry right now.
Well, that was what the seemed to imply. That's
So I definitely can go from 0 to 100 real quick, and I know that I have a problem with anger because my sign for like, oh, are things going too far, is if I start to be angry about something, it's like almost this feeling of like, yes, now I can think about every single other thing in the whole world that is making me angry right now, and I can make one mega rant for all of it that includes everything, and I can scream it in my car, and I will like amp myself up to be more and more and more angry. It's like a little tornado of rage, and I get this way. I don't want to say often, but I do get this way. And a lot of times the thing that's tricky for me is most of my anger, I think, comes from a place that is good, because the things that make me angriest are when I see injustice. And I think that's where healthy anger starts. Anger is there to motivate you to positive action. Anger is there so that when you see people being hurt, you have something pushing you to step up and stop them being hurt. And when anger goes too far, it's no longer helpful. Like, I am not aiding anyone by practicing all of the things I'm going to scream at people in my car, in my head, if they say the right trigger word to set me off. Like me rehearsing my mic drop moment that I'm going to have with that guy who I know is going to say something, not helpful to anyone. That is, for me, that's okay, you need to take several steps back. And the thing that gets me back to a place of maybe a more healthy expression of anger is being like, okay, so what is going to be positive? Like, what am I angry about? And what can I do to like change that situation? How can I help the people around me who are being treated unjustly? What is in my sphere of influence? Because to be completely honest, sometimes it's the easiest things to get angry about are the things that you have no control over. Like those are the things in moments where you feel powerless. That's where the anger really, really takes over. So what is in your sphere of influence? How do you take this anger and instead of letting it eat you up and drive divisions between you and other people and drive divisions between you and just health in general, just being right mentally and spiritually, what can that anger channel itself into that helps those around you and that gets at the root of what you're angry about?
Yeah. Amity had a telltale sign from my life that I'll throw in there as like I think I've gone too far when this happens. Being the other side of an exorcist, what if, I'm just thinking out loud here, all those times where I'm driving in my car and I'm dialoguing a fictional conversation with my...
Oh, thank God it's not just me.
Oh, no, it's
Well,
not.
like-
I do that so often. I was like,
not.
am I revealing myself to be insane right now on a
No.
podcast?
When you have somebody, you're like, then they say this thing, and then I say that thing, and then they say that back, and I say this.
Yep. I've made myself cry.
I've made myself scream at the top of my lungs doing
So
that.
just a thought on the other side of doing exorcism. Is it possible in those moments that demons are like, allow me to be your sparring partner? I'll pretend to be them.
Ew, don't even say that. Oh my gosh. Don't.
But what's the fruit, right? Like the
Yeah.
fruit of those moments
Yeah.
is stuff that tends to lead us into an unhealthy anger. So like, even if you think of it as what's a vision, it's something played out in your head. How many times have you imagined you're with your friend and you guys are fighting it out? Like, it's possible in those moments. Like that's a spiritual grip that we're not noticing that we've fallen into. You want an exorcism real quick?
Yeah, I was like, wait, maybe I have an
Blown
anger
her
thing.
mind.
Maybe I have an anger thing we need to figure out.
Well, so
Our next podcast is going to be me getting a live exorcism on the YouTube.
Oh, live dreamscaping.
yeah, well, that's not a bad idea actually.
No, that is a bad idea. What? That was a joke. Let the record show that was a joke.
I have done live dreamscaping in church before.
I know. I go to your church.
No. One person on the stage in front of everyone I've done. You haven't been there for that.
Never
Okay.
asked me to do that. Never asked me.
Yeah, I haven't because I knew you would say that. But like, what if those moments where like I have entered into this fictional conversation? What if sometimes I am creating space for a demon to be like, all right, I'll pretend to be them. Let me have it. You know, like that's a different way. But it's a different way to think of it.
So icky.
Now,
That's so gross.
rehearsing a conversation in your mind like that, is there ever a healthy way to do it? Is there a time where it's constructive?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah. How would it be?
I think if you're going into a meeting with someone and you have to think, okay, what are things that might be triggers for myself? If they say this, how can I stay calm? How can I stay loving? How can I, instead of, getting yourself amped up, figure out how you can amp yourself down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like what's the motivation? Are you, because for me it's like, I'm going to yell at them and da-da-da-da, and then they're going to know how wrong they are, and then they're going to feel so bad that they've been so evil to me specifically.
And the demon's
it's
like, yeah. Let them have
No,
it.
damn it. That was my example of bad. No, don't do that.
Yeah, so
I
bad.
guess-
Don't. No, I
Okay.
don't know.
Anyway, the healthy version of that I think would be like the opposite motivation. Like, how do I go into this with reconciliation at the forefront of my mind? They might say this, that is going to set me off. How do I keep it in control? How do I make sure that the words I'm choosing to say don't put guilt and shame and all these feelings on them? How do I speak more carefully when I say this? How do I speak more lovingly when I say this? How do I convey this idea in a way that is beneficial to them, not just like me trying to make them see like, oh, you were so wrong and da-da-da-da-da and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Because those moments usually lead to, like Tasha said, I'm getting ready for a conversation. Have I just fantasized all the ways it's going wrong? Because when I walk into those meetings, I'm already ready to blow.
Yeah.
Right? And so they say one thing that has already been in my dialogue in my mind, and suddenly I'm ready for like, well, let me tell you something, you know. And likewise,
I practiced this 30 times. Get ready.
I likewise have had people do that to me, where like, I have not done the things that I am in their head, you know, like I'm like, who do you think I am? Like, how did you get to that conclusion? Like, but I can't break them out of it because I can tell that they did too much play acting before they got to that meeting, and I am now the victim either of their mind or possibly their sparring partner, which I have had at least one case where like the drama that I ran into in a church situation, was getting this demon out, and I was like, did you try to come between us? And it was like, we were trying to break the anointing off of both of you, you know? I was like, well, there you go. Like, there's an example where what I became in their head and what they became in my head was actually spiritual warfare at play, trying to amp us up toward each other until we were enemies, only angry and not pursuing love or peace anymore, right? And, yeah. So there's a lot of elements to know. Anything else we need to throw in, like triggers that you should recognize?
A tip that I have, because I'm an all or nothing queen, will, like, this was a big problem early in my marriage, was I wanted to be the perfect wife. And I wanted to be amazing for my husband. And so something would happen and I'd just be like, just let it go. Just give it to Elsa. Just let it go. Whatever. Until
I was like, what?
Your
Give
demon
it to
was named
Elsa? Let it go. That took me embarrassingly long to connect those dots.
Frozen.
If you used a Chapel Roan song.
Pop culture queen. Yay.
Didn't that movie come out in like 2012?
All right, you get out of there. Move along. Leave the young and over here.
So I would let it build until something stupid. He would do this little teeny tiny thing and I would just blow and I would go nuts and I'd be like, I can't believe you do that. You always do that. You've done this and this and this and this. And so me thinking, hey, I'm being a wonderful person, just turned into taking all of those things and just waiting, just letting it fester. And so, one of the things that I had to do with myself was get very stern with myself. And any time that, he would do something and I would, not be okay with it, I would have to think, okay, is this important enough to address? If it is, I'm going to do it. If it's not, I'm going to let it go. And if it's not important enough to address, you gotta drop it. If it happens enough times, let's address it. But just getting stern with myself because I have in myself something that just it doesn't want conflict. It doesn't want, I want to be seen as perfect. I want to be seen as, wonderful and whatever. But I had to be stern with myself that if this is bothering you, it needs to be addressed for the sake of being a good wife, for the sake of not blasting him to kingdom come later on.
Yeah, I think ultimately what you need to do, no matter what side of anger you're on, you're too angry, you're not angry enough, you're somewhere in the middle, is the same thing that I do with every other baggage that people have, is you need to figure out how to give it to Jesus. So if you're too angry, there's a good chance that you have not forgiven a lot of people and you need to release something, because as the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger, otherwise you give the enemy a foothold, right? So if you are just hanging on to anger and you won't confess it and you won't give the other person a chance to even redeem themselves, then it's time to give that anger to Jesus. It needs to be worked through with him, because he can help you. If there is any appropriate anger in it, he will help you find it and then work with it. Likewise, if you are not angry enough because you've been told to just forgive and have peace that is no peace, then you need to learn to let Jesus make you appropriately angry so you can give it to him. because Jesus was angry, and he's angry about the injustices that you've gone through. And if you're not, and he's angry on your behalf, like, he might actually want to help you become angry about it. Now, we are all really bad with anger in general. It drives us to do really bad things. So, like, it's a trick. You got to figure it out. But Jesus can handle it. And one of the things that really blew my mind long ago in college was my mentor was talking about, like, anger at God himself. Like, he can handle it, and you have to give it to him. And if you don't, then he can't fix it. Like, he can't show you a better way or help you through it. Because even God knows what anger is, and he knows how to deal with your anger for him. So if there's something that's off with you and him, like, he needs the chance to repair the relationship, which he can't do if you just keep holding it to him. So you got to talk to him about it. And I think you probably find some Psalms that will be your Holy Spirit sparring partner. Psalm 88, is that the one? Like, the darkest one in the Bible? That
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think it's 88, where it just ends with, like, darkness surrounds me and it's my only friend. You know, like, it's
Okay.
it's dark. And the Bible knows how to cope with God. Why have you done this to me? Why is this happening to me? Jeremiah was a bipolar prophet, as far as we can tell. Chapter 5, today was a great day. Chapter 6, I hate everyone. You know, it's just like back and forth. Like, why have you made me a laughing stock among these people? You have to deal with it. Between you and him, between you and others, whatever the case, you always need to give it to the Holy Spirit, and he can turn it either into redemptive anger or help you get rid of the sinister anger that's no helpful to you. Yeah. So there's my last point, I guess.
Slay. That's my last point.
Tasha, final point?
Period.
Doing great.
And that's on period.
Pretty sure this episode needs to end with our theme song with Screamo music going on.
Yeah, that's a good one. Jamin has, like, put our theme song into some AI thing that has made it into 30
An
different
AI
versions.
thing made the theme song.
Whatever. It's made like 30
does
different
cover
versions of the
versions of it.
theme song in different genres.
I've actually made 112 versions of it.
What?
I haven't-
You have 4 jobs and a family. When are you having time to make 112 AI covers of
Okay,
songs?
that comment made me very angry.
Oh, that was healthy of you to express that.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been the Exorcist Bestiary. Join us next time for whatever we do. Here's a bunch of screamo music. You got married in that cape, didn't you?
I did.
Okay, that's
And
fine.
I Hope's newborn pictures. We put her in it.
Oh my gosh.
And it was
wait,
all
that's
fluffy.
really cute.
I know, right?
Delivered right into it.
Ew, Jamin.
Yuck.
You made it
Although,
gross.
in one of the
Although.
other poses, she pooped in one of the little, and I was
Ooh.
so thankful she didn't in my
Yeah, on your
white
wedding
cape.
cloak and your cape you were wearing.
I think we just found our end of clip again.
No.